Okay, so on today's episode, we had Jodine, who is a contractor. Is there anything that you wanted to say about this episode?
Yeah, I mean, Joe is a local contractor and construction professional. He's been around a long time, and so he's got a lot of insights. He brought some stories that were impactful and inspirational. Mm-hmm. But one of the interesting things, Hilton Head Island, which is our local island to here that many people may be familiar with, he was one of the first fire marshals he was the first fire marshal on Hilton Head Island.
Cool.
So that was interesting. And just what is a fire marshal? What was his relationship? How did that come about? So I thought it brought a lot of impact. And then some of the personal stories that he talked about his father and how that impacted his life and how that related back to construction. So those were all interesting things to me.
That's really cool. Sounds like it was a good episode.
It was.
Jodine.
You've been waiting to say that your whole life.
Well, actually, my older brother made that up one time when you were talking about contractors and you mentioned him, and Jesse sang it. So that was really funny.
And it's what popular artist does that mimic?
Dolly Parton. Yeah. Jolene.
Which is your favorite, right?
She's up there.
Up there, pretty good. Not your favorite anymore?
I don't know. Once you listen to an artist on repeat when you're 12, they don't really appeal to you when you're 18.
Yeah, okay. Very good. Awesome. Well, hey, everybody, maybe you'll learn about Jodine or maybe Jolene, but we won't learn about Dolly Parton in this episode, but you will learn about some things that are inspirational that will hopefully entertain you and educate you. That's what we're all about on the Enhanced Podcast. My name is Andy Richardson. This is our producer, Madeline. Let's jump to the intro.
Welcome to Enhance, an AEC podcast, where we learn the why behind AEC professionals so that you can learn your why.
Well, hey, Joe, welcome to the Enhanced Podcast.
Well, thank you, Andy.
And
good to be here.
Definitely glad to have you in today. And, I wanted to bring you in. You have a lot of experience in construction, building codes, just all kind of different things.
A lot of different things.
Which I'm sure you've seen a lot of things. So I wanted to ask you, I like to start out with just a fun opener, but
sure.
What's the most interesting, ingenious repair or fix you've seen in the field over the years?
Oh, Lord. That's a broad list of stuff, I guess. Narrow it down. I've enjoyed doing repairs on old historic buildings, because you got to go, when you finish, it has to look exactly like it looked before you started. And like some of the old buildings down on the waterfront here, well, it used to be a waterfront, now it's a waterfront park. Their foundations got old and dilapidated over the years and centuries, and so sometimes you have to go in there and fix all that. And then some floors get aged over time and you have to go in and do that. And then they want to open up and get back into business as fast as possible. So you got to do that. And sometimes you have to be creative. Sometimes you have to call a structural engineer to help you out with what kind of foundation to replace that 200-year-old one.
Right.
But that's one of the neat things that I've enjoyed is older buildings. I've done some of these older homes, turned them into medical offices and business offices and all downtown and over the years. And that's one of the interesting things about doing some of the stuff on Hilton Head back in the day, being the fire marshal, and all over there was everything was new. There wasn't a whole lot of old stuff on the island. It's a little bit on the north end, but pretty much everything was new, and so that was fun. Yeah. Just seeing new construction, new things. Yeah.
And we have people that listen in from different parts of the country. I mean, obviously we have our Beaufortonian and Hilton Head group, but so you're from a smaller town outside of Beaufort, Hilton Head, right?
Well, I live in Varnville now, which is about 47 miles from here.
Yeah.
A little 42 acres out in the boonies, and I like that. But I was born right across the bay over there at Beaufort Memorial Hospital.
Okay.
Long time ago, when it was just a little brick building.
Right. And so you grew up in Beaufort proper, or okay.
Yeah, well, started out at the end of North Street, and then we moved over to Ladies Island, had a little farm over there for 6 or 8 years, and then moved back into town, and then moved. My teenage years were in Port Royal, and was a great old house that my parents bought for a whopping $3,400, and
wow.
And my father never hired anybody to do anything. We did it all ourselves.
Sure.
And of course we had family help, and all in rehabbing the building. It was built in the mid-1800s or so, and it's pink now. It was white then, and and Port Royal was about 800 people lived there when we moved there. 65.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a lot different today.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Lot different.
And I mean, Hilton Head's probably more popular than Beaufort. About Beaufort, and all these cities have grown.
Yeah, to a degree. Not with me anymore, but that's just because of the growth. I mean, too crowded for me. But
right.
The first time I went over there, you had to go over on a ferry.
Oh wow.
Yeah, my father worked on the bridge crew that built the bridge in '56, and he was one of the crew superintendents for some period of time when all over there. So
56 they built the bridge to Hilton Head. Before that, it was just straight up ferry.
Charlie Fraser just started Sea Pines Plantation.
So Sea Pines was, you had to use a ferry to get there originally.
No, they had an old bridge that was there, and actually I think there's if you look close enough when you go across the bridge, you can see some of the old remnants that started out as a ferry dock, and they built a bridge, kind of like what we have here with the Woods Memorial Bridge. That was originally a ferry link to get to Ladies Island and all, and then they built a wooden bridge. It was actually a wooden bridge, and then replaced that in '59 with the bridge that we have today. And then my cousin got killed, and they named it after him in '69.
Okay.
Yeah, Richard Woods.
Okay.
Yeah. That's one of the things with having family here for a long time. You're kind of inbred everywhere.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry to hear about your cousin, and I didn't know that.
That was a long time ago.
Yeah, but the bridge, many people have seen.
Oh yeah.
On TV, right? On the movies.
Oh yeah, that one and Broad River Bridge. It's movies. Which is always fun because they usually show people coming into Beaufort, but they're going out on the bridge in the movie.
Okay.
And then if they're leaving, they're actually coming in.
Oh, okay.
Just because the camera angle is better for them, I guess. And so that's the way they do it.
That's funny. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and Forrest Gump is the Woods Memorial.
Yeah.
The steel bridge right there.
Yeah. Forrest Gump was that's actually, they were doing Forrest Gump when I moved back here from California. I spent 10 years out in California, '83 to '93, and when I came back, they were filming.
Yeah.
Forrest Gump. Yep.
So Hilton Head, I want to go back. Talk about Hilton Head some more. I'm interested in that because when did you become the fire marshal on Hilton Head?
Actually, I'll give you a little quick history. In July of '73, they had 2 public service districts. There was a Sea Pines Public Service District and a Forest Beach Public Service District, and that was the only government over on Hilton Head at the time other than within the county. And they established a fire department, hired a chief July of '73, and then they hired the first 6 of us January of '74. And about a year later, I became fire marshal. And I had a lot of fun with that, because there were initially I was the only person doing any kind of inspections or anything on Hilton Head. The county didn't really have anybody, and I got to be the person to monitor the 10-story Hyatt hotel as one of those cutting your teeth on something, and which is why there's nothing over 5 stories in Beaufort County now, because they passed an ordinance after that 10-story one got in on them. And, the fire department throughout the county basically said, we don't have anything to attack a 10-story building. And so they put a height restriction on 5 stories and all that. But
so we have you to thank for that.
Yeah, I had a little part to do with that. Yeah.
Now, so that one got built at 10 stories.
That's the only building over 5 stories in Beaufort County.
To this day.
Still effective ordinance.
Okay.
Yep.
And can you explain the fire aspect of that? Like why?
Well, yeah. Well, certainly. I mean, it was kind of twofold. Number one, it was a very big building, and so you could have a very large number of people occupying that building at a particular time, as opposed to your normal little Marriott hotel with 100 rooms or so. You've got a 10-story monstrosity that's got the potential for having a lot of people in there. We just didn't have the manpower to deal with rescuing people out if you had a problem in that building. Just being able to, just the manpower alone to take care of the people in the building to get them out or whatever would have been overtaxing. But also 10 stories is, that's over 100 feet high, just doing 10 foot of floor. And a lot of them, the first couple of floors were almost 15 feet. They had a big atrium in there that stood higher, and also, I think, if I remember correctly, the top of the building was about 110 feet, and there were no aerial ladder trucks in Beaufort County at the time. And so basically, from an outside standpoint, you would only be able to attack them on a ladder, and you didn't have ladders to do that, and so you basically would have to go inside, and so not having the equipment, the manpower, and everything. I mean, if at that time, basically, if we pulled everybody, I mean, Beaufort, the city of Beaufort was not even a paid department at the time; it was all volunteer, and so and Port Royal was all volunteer. But if you pulled all those together, we still didn't have the manpower to attack a large, what they would call maybe like a 5-alarm fire in there, because we would run out of trucks and people real quick. Right. And so that was something why everybody that was in power, county council and so forth, everybody took a look at that and said, yeah, we need a limit. And then as time marched along, having a limit of 5 stories makes for limited requirements for manpower and equipment. Mm-hmm. And so that saves everybody money, taxpayers and so forth. You'd have to have a different fire department than say, downtown New York. They got all kinds of high stuff, but also in what today is a high rise, the 10 stories, I don't think we really even qualified as a high rise building at the time. But high rise is a whole different structure. That's all built and designed for interior rescue and firefighting. And but even back in the day when in places like New York, in the when they first started building taller buildings and all, they didn't think about that kind of stuff. So time marches on and we all get smarter and more experienced with stuff, and we figure out what we need, and then we figure out how to get the money to buy it. And of course, all that equipment, everything is a lot more expensive today than it was back then. But
that's true.
But yeah, as fire marshal, my job on that, it was at a request from the chairman of the county council, Arthur Horn, asked me to just kind of monitor it for the county, and I did, and it was great. I don't remember all the people that were involved in building it, but they were very accommodating for helping me, because I mean, I was a young pup, 22 years old, and so I had very little direct experience in doing that kind of inspections and construction supervising and all that sort of stuff. And so they worked with me on, trying to make sure they were following the code. But of course they had architects and engineers that designed all that stuff that weren't from here. They were from places where that's an everyday thing for them. A 10-story building was no big deal. And so they knew what they were doing, and my job was just to make sure that I understood what they were doing, and so we could pre-plan. That's one of the things the fire departments do, is they do a lot of pre-planning, and we did that also. And it was actually, in Palmetto Dunes, it was actually outside of our jurisdiction. Sea-Pines Forest Beach to the 2 public service districts that we worked for. That was on the north end of the island. That Palmetto Dunes was kind of center of the island, and so nobody really had the jurisdiction there other than the county as a whole. And so they put me to work over there, and I went back and forth, and they sent me a set of plans to review. Of course, they were already started building it at the time, but I got 3 rolls of plans, and each roll was about that big around. And I had to pull the fire trucks out of the fire station and lay the stuff out in the bay where the trucks park to look at all of it. And I spent a lot of time just looking at all that stuff, and which was totally a new experience for me. But I was on a learning mission. And I did that, and that helped me a lot for, when you're going to learn, having something big like that thrown at you, that means you got to learn a lot of stuff, and you got to learn it fast. And
that's a lot of responsibility too.
But it was fun, but there was a lot of details because I'd never even looked inside a set of plans for a commercial building or something like that. I just didn't have that experience. I came out of the Air Force and to the fire department.
How did you end up in that position of the fire marshal?
Well, actually, we when they hired the original 6 of us, Wendell Wilburn, who was retired fire chief from the city of Beaufort, and he combined Port Royal into city. So that's the reason you have Beaufort, Port Royal Fire Department. Wendell worked through that with the city managers and town manager in Port Royal, and that worked really well for them, still does. But we started out, Wendell and I were 2 volunteers in Port Royal back in the 60s, and we drove the fire truck, put out fires and stuff and as teenagers, and because there wasn't anybody else to do it. And then we moved on. Wendell got a job at the airport on Hilton Head, and then I was getting out of the Air Force, and he said, "Hey, I just talked to this new chief over there, and they're starting a paid department over there. He wants to talk to you." So I went over there to talk to him. Dave McClellan, wonderful person, great chief, and he hired me as the number 6 of the original 6, and then 6 months later we hired some more, and I became. We did a test for the three shifts. We did 24 on, 48 off. And so they split it up into 3 shifts, and I became one of the lieutenants in charge of a shift. And then we had one of our lieutenants became a fire prevention officer, and great guy, good friend, and he got tired of that and being on the fire department and went off into being an electrician and started his own business. And basically Dave, fire chief, asked the rest of the guys, we need a fire prevention officer, and nobody else wanted it. And I thought about it. I thought, well, I get my own vehicle. I'm 8 to 5, which translates into 24/7, because I was kind of like number 2 in charge of the department, and then command on the fire scenes and stuff. And then after about 6 months or so, we changed the title to fire marshal, because under the state laws, the state laws were written as fire marshal, and so I became fire marshal. And I was a captain then. My rank was captain, and I was the only one at the time, only captain. But the department grew, and we did a lot of training. I was a fire service instructor. I was I was president of the Fire Service Instructors Association in South Carolina. I was president of the Arson Investigators Association in South Carolina, and then we created the South Carolina Fire Academy. I worked with USCB and Midland Tech they helped me, or I pitched to them, and they took it and ran with it to create the Fire Science Technology degree program to be available here. I mean, it was already available in different parts of the country, but to start it here, to make it available for people in South Carolina, we did that. And we created the Fire Academy up in Columbia out at Midland Tech. And we did a lot of things. And then, FEMA came along, and the National Fire Academy was established in '74, I believe, and somewhere along in there. And I was a part of all that just because I was there at the right time. There wasn't anything really special about me.
Well, you raised your hand.
Well, that was it. Yeah. And that's one of the things my father taught me a lot of stuff. And one of the things that he taught me was that, never be afraid of a challenge. That's how you go places in the world is, be the one that raises your hand and says, yeah, I'll go for that. And I did, because nobody else was doing it. And It was new. I got to create my own job description, everything, and then we started our dispatch there at the fire station, and the dispatch worked under me, so I had that. And as we grew, we had more and more guys from Port Royal that ended up over there. Jay Harder became our assistant chief over there. He was one of the Port Royal boys that came over. Wonderful person, passed away a few years ago. Good friend, miss him still. And I talk to his kids on the Facebook every now and then just to touch base with them. Lovely family. He had a great story. He was a shrimper, and he had a shrimp boat, and it started out as the 2 J's, Jay and Janet, his wife, and it was the 6 J's by the time he stopped shrimping.
With the kids.
4 kids.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, nice.
Yep. But growing up in a town like Port Royal, it was so small, and everybody knew each other. We had volunteers back in '72. Just before I was due to go into the Air Force, because I got one of those little draft notices that said, you're 1A, and this was tail end of Vietnam, so I joined the Air Force, but I had a 6-month delay. And during that time period, there was a thing that came along. You could become an emergency medical technician, an EMT. And we held a class there at the Port Royal Fire Station, and well, up until we actually created, I'd say we, but Beaufort County created the EMS. Everything was the funeral homes had the ambulances, and so it was time for Beaufort County to move in. We had volunteer rescue squads in different places, but I did that EMT program, and I think my number was 430, and the people that had the class before our group basically was the doctors and nurses that went through it, and then they taught it. And so we were either the first or one of the first in the state to have the EMT class. And so, you know, it's just having all that stuff, and just everything was interesting to me, and I wanted to learn and bring more stuff in. And all during that, you know, when my parents bought that house in '65, and there was so much to do, like I say, we didn't hire anybody to do anything. We did it all ourselves, and so I learned electrical, plumbing, sewer systems, oyster shells, and clay tiles, and felt paper, and for a drain field. Yep.
Okay. So
built our own.
You build a drain. So some people don't know how septic works.
Yeah.
You have a box.
Yeah, you have a basic box, and your solids stay in half of the box, and bacteria basically eats those, and then the liquids flow over into the second compartment of the box. Back then, you only had one compartment in a box, and the liquids that floated to the top would filter off drain down into the drain field.
Yeah.
And
but you made your own drain field.
Yeah, we built. Yeah, there was no sewer system in Port Royal back then.
You were saying with oyster shells.
You did clay pipe.
Yeah.
Terracotta pipe on top of oyster shells.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you eat them and then you throw them in the backyard.
Well, you know, you could get them for free.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's I mean, that's using your available materials.
Yeah, but right? We learned, you know, plumbing, you name it. I did it. Painting. We demoed a bunch of parts of the old house. The house was built in 2 parts originally in the 1800s. They didn't have, the kitchen was not attached to the house back then. The kitchen caught on fire. You didn't want it to burn the house down. And so in the, I want to say, early 1900s, they built in between the kitchen and the house. They created a dining room and another bedroom and another bathroom, and to tie it all together. And it's kind of fun to see that old house every now and then. But yeah, a lot of memories there.
It's pretty hot down here too. I think keeping the kitchen.
Oh, we had
helps.
Yeah, we had 2 air conditioners, one in the living room in the window, and one in Mom and Dad's bedroom.
Yeah. Okay. So everybody crowded in Mom and Dad's room to get cool.
Yeah. But that was the way it was, and the electrical, in the attic. For those electricians that might see this, 440 on glass insulators was the electricity that served the house, and so we had to take all of that out and then rewire the whole thing with real electrical panels and everything.
So because now it's 110.
Yeah.
Right? And what does that mean? Like, why was it 440?
Well, 440 was main power lines and everything. They didn't do transformers and bring it down. They just went right into the house, and so
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's the volts.
Yeah.
Okay, 110 volts. Yeah.
And if you cross those 2 wires, ouch.
I mean, they
were
lethal.
Dead squirrels and stuff up there that had been there for a long time.
Wow.
Yeah, they crossed the thing, but
I want to talk about a little more about the fire marshal,
sure.
And how it ties to the building department. Can you explain that a little bit? How does the fire marshal and building department go together?
Actually, I did not get involved with the building department other than when the county started hiring building officials. The first one got fired. We won't go into that. That was a personnel issue. But when they started hiring inspectors, they came over, 2 or 3 of the guys came over there, and I took them around and introduced them to builders and commercial businesses and all. They didn't normally do inspections of existing buildings. So it was just, stuff that was under construction. And the builders, the residential builders especially, were not used to having inspectors over there, and so another one of those things that my father taught me was tact and diplomacy. And so one of the things that I mentioned to the guys was, don't go barging in and say, hey, you can't do that, you got to do it this way, because at the time you might have been driven back off of the island. And
right.
So the guys that the county hired were really good guys. They were experienced electricians, experienced builders, and also they knew what they were looking at. Mm-hmm. And I just helped them get introduced around. And then Arthur Cummings became building official for Beaufort County. Wonderful person. Mm-hmm. I still enjoy seeing him every now and then out and about. But yeah, we had, I just kind of helped with that just because I was there first. And so part of what I did also was the fact that there were not a lot of places with building codes. And so at the time, there wasn't the international codes. This was way before international codes. We had the Southern Building Code Congress in Birmingham. And I used to go over 2 or 3 times a year with proposed changes and modifications to the building code. Then they created a fire code. And so I was a part of adding and changing things in that. And then the county adopted the versions of the building code, and then we got plumbing code. This was new stuff for our area here, and but everybody adapted well. They learned. Everybody, nobody really fought against it or anything. They knew it was good. But one of the things that I noticed, and it's a little bit the same even today, is with the international code. You see engineers, architects, lawyers, government officials and all that go to the meetings and talk about stuff, but you rarely see as much as I think there should be everyday citizens that are going to be affected by all these codes, because the international codes, while they are good and they're sort of built for one size fits all. They want that book to cover everything. You have the International Building Code is about that thick. Mm-hmm. The International Residential Code is about that thick.
Right, it's thicker, yeah.
And but they all also refer to hundreds of different standards that are used to apply to different sections of the code. And so I like the international codes. They're great because, believe me, you need information sources and all when you're building, and you want to make sure that you're building a safe product. And you can have all kinds of memories and information in your head, but things change, technology changes and everything, and there's better ways to do things always coming. And so having those books available, I have mine in my back of my truck, which is of course my office. And yeah, you have a few of those, don't you?
Yeah, a few books and standards and things. Yeah.
But yeah, you have to be able to make sure that you're doing stuff. And I mean, even something as simple as building a staircase. You know, in the old days, you just built something and you know, 6 or 7 inches was about the right height, comfortable height to go up. And now there's actually codes that tell you in residential the maximum is 7 3/4 and minimum tread depth and minimum width for the stairway and all that. And so that way you have more of an assurance that that when somebody buys your house, they have a comfort level to some degree that your house was built to a code. And so when they buy yours and then somebody else buys another one down the road, and you know, there's still houses that were built long before the codes. Drive down Bay Street, look at all those 250, 300-year-old houses that were built long before there was any codes, but people knew how to build that stuff, you know. But yeah, things are different, but that's how I got involved in all of that and helping to write the code by just contributing a little bit, you know, and being a part of a member of the Fire Marshals Association of North America involved me in a lot of that also, and on a national level, and I did a lot of public education as fire prevention officer and fire marshal. Did a lot of talks to the schools, kids, teaching kids stop, drop, and roll. You know, that was fun because that was relatively new for all of them. We had the Chicago fire was on October 9th. And so the week that contained October 9th was Fire Prevention Week.
Okay.
And we started a carnival on Hilton Head to involve the community in Fire Prevention Week. And guys on the fire department can be hilarious at times.
Okay.
And so we developed little skits.
Oh, okay.
And
nice.
A lot of it was kind of like Keystone Cops, but as firefighters.
Okay.
But then we also had games for the kids to play, and all. We raised money for the Island Youth Center, which was just getting started good at the time. And but all of that stuff, fire service is a family, like a lot of industries and all. And you know, I mean, I can go anywhere and go into a fire station and talk about fire service and how those local folks are dealing with fires and all that. But when you've gone into a house, like one of the first ones that I went into in Port Royal that actually began Wendell and my careers in the fire service was a friend of ours was frying French fries on their stove, and we won't talk about names, and their kitchen caught on fire, and we went running down there because they were just a few blocks away from us, and we ran down to the fire station to see, you know, about a fire truck. We had a big siren on top of a pole back then, and I know this sounds kind of silly, but it was a fact at the time because Port Royal was a very small town and it was a beautiful town, but we didn't have a big need for a fire department, but we had a need for a trash truck, and the front wheel off of the fire truck was on the trash truck because it had a flat tire, and so the fire truck was useless. But man. Beaufort sent people. The air station actually sent a truck to help, got the fire out, and that's what got us interested. And then some of the adults in Port Royal went to the town and said, hey, we need to get the fire department going and get this stuff straightened out. And so a lot of those people that later ended up working on Hilton Head were part of that volunteer reorganization, we'll say. And we had a budget of $25 a month from the town. Yeah, big time.
Wow, almost enough to buy a house.
We rebuilt, we rebuilt the engine for that same fire truck out in the yard behind the Port Royal Elementary School, threw a chain hoist over a tree limb and did it all ourselves, you know.
Yeah.
And but yeah, that start to that stuff and all, it was a lot of fun and great group of people.
Yeah.
Do anything for you, but we would go, Wendell and I would go, just the two of us, and put out fires all over the place because we were, I mean, I could literally hear the siren from Beaufort High went over to Mossy Oaks, and I would get up and run out of class and go get in my car and go down, and Wendell and I go fight a fire with a fire truck.
You were in high school.
Yeah,
at the time.
After the initial stuff, yeah, I was in high school. Initially, I was only like 13, 14 years old when we started. Yeah, but
that occurred when you were 13, and you got interested in the fire department at that time.
Yeah,
because
and then they invited us, the adults that decided to reorganize and invited Wendell and I to come and be a part of it, and we did.
Yeah.
And, you know, Wendell made a 35, 40-year career out of it and did a fantastic job as far as I'm concerned. That's one of the best things Beaufort ever did was make Wendell permanent fire chief, and did a great job.
Yeah.
But we were pretty much best friends back in the day, and still are. He's one of those guys that, you know, you have a friend that you could literally be lost in Alaska and call him and say, hey, come get me. He would.
Yeah, 3 a.m.
And the same thing back and forth. You know, that's just the way it was. And I got to be godfather of his 3 daughters. Love them to death. And, but yeah, then as fire marshal, the chief and I went to public service district meeting one day and reviewing 5-year budget, and the commissioner said, you know, you guys are doing a great job. We hope you're here till you retire. And on the way back to the office, I looked at Dave and I said, I have no idea what I want to be doing the rest of my life. I was 27 at the time. And this was 1980, and I turned in my resignation the next morning.
Oh wow! So
and gave a month notice, and then I was interviewed by the Island Packet several times in the Savannah Morning News. Why is the fire marshal leaving? You know, thought that I'd done something wrong or they had done something wrong or something, and I said, no, it has nothing to do with that. It is the fact that I'm just not sure this is what I want to be doing for the rest of my life. And so my wife at the time, Elizabeth, said, well, why don't you go back to school? So I started a little cleaning company and came over here, went to sign up at USCB, which was only a 2-year campus at the time. Mm-hmm. But I started going in that, and then I knew I had to go to Columbia to finish and get my degree in business. And then when I finished that, I said, now what, you know? And we were looking at places to go, and I decided I wanted to be a stockbroker.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, only job I ever had in my life that I hated.
Okay.
Yeah, I did not like that.
Well, why did you go into business when you went to college?
Well, starting the business, cleaning business out of the fire department, it got so big, I literally took a semester off from school to run the business. I had a property management company. I had a broker's license, real estate broker's license, everything. I was set up, good operation, and I was making 3 times what I was making at the fire department. You know, but I got to that point where I said, you know, I have to decide now whether I'm going to continue and finish school because I put myself on that path. And that was another one of those things that my father taught me. If you sign up to start something, finish it. And I taught my daughter that. If you start something, if you're going to play basketball for the school team, you sign up, you don't quit halfway through. You finish the season. Now, you may not want to do it the next season.
Correct.
But you do that. She was a cheerleader also. And I said, you do it for the whole season. But when I got out there and realized after a year or less than a year that I was not cut out to be a stockbroker, I used my financial education and business education to do more business and management consulting and retirement consulting, retirement plans. I designed and administered retirement plans for businesses and individuals and so forth. And I did that for about 10 years. And then it was time to move back. I came back in July of '93. And when my first wife and I left here, they were doing the big chill. And so we were here with another couple having dinner. We wanted to have dinner, but it was getting late, and of course all the kitchens usually closed at like 9 o'clock or 9:30, and we were getting hungry. And so I called over to Whitehall because I knew the guys over there, and I said, told them, our situation. We're looking for, some place to come eat. Are you still serving? Said, oh yeah, come on over, Joe. And said, we got one group in the dining room, and we'll put you guys over in the corner, and y'all won't bother each other. And oh, great. So we went over, and the group of the other end of the thing was the cast from the Big Chill.
Oh, that's cool.
Which was fun. And for New Year's, we were playing the piano and singing, and they allowed us to join in there a little bit, which was kind of cool.
Yeah. And
then when I came back in '93, they were filming Forrest Gump.
Okay.
And a friend of mine was the bartender at Bananas.
Used to be Bananas.
Used to be Bananas. It's Luther's now. It was originally Luther's Pharmacy.
Yeah.
Got my first soda fountain Coke in there at Luther's when I was about 6 or 7.
Well, Luther's is kind of popular.
Yes, it is. Now, very popular.
In the country. Yeah. Because of a certain case that occurred. So you might know what we're talking about with regard to Luther. So you used to go there though. To get Coke and such.
Yeah. But yeah, I was there with Chris, and he had to go stock a load of beer down below, and said, asked me to watch the bar. It was not really, wasn't anybody coming in. It was like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It wasn't, or a little bit before that, because they had closed for lunch, and then they had a little break before anybody started coming in the evening. And I was sitting there having a beer, and Sean Penn walks in, sits down at the bar, and says, who do I got to see to get a beer? And I said, I get you. What kind you want? Well, I got a beer. We sat there and talked for about 15, 20 minutes or so. I had the beer. I said, what are you doing in Beaufort? He says, oh, my girlfriend's in this movie. And I go, oh yeah, Robin Wright.
Robin Wright.
They were dating at the time. And so we had a nice conversation, and then, I paid for his beer for him. He said, who do I pay for it? And I said, I got you, man.
Yeah.
Have a good time. And he was just as nice as he could be.
Yeah.
And, but then being back here, I wanted something to do, and I didn't want to come back here. It was a whole different setup doing financial consulting and all. I was one of the early certified financial planners. Like my number on that one was like 4,000 something, and there's lots of them nowadays. But it was just timing. I just happened to be doing what I was doing at that time. And I just didn't really want to get back into doing that when I moved back over here. I wanted to kind of soften things, and so I ended up helping out in a couple of businesses to help run their stuff, and then my cousin called me and said, "Hey, I got a lady out at Grays Hill that needs some repairs to her mobile home, and you know, you want to go take a look?" And I said, "Sure, why not?" So went out, and he and I started doing repairs and rehabs and painting, and you name it, we did it, and did more over on Hilton Head. Got started doing more and more over there, and it was kind of fun being back on the island after a long time. Dave McCullum was still there as the chief, and we got to go play golf a lot, which is something that we used to do a lot of back when I was on the department. But that grew into more construction and more construction, and then adding to houses, building garages for people, and then before you know it, I was building stuff. And we started out just doing repairs and rehabs and stuff like that, and painting. We painted a lot of houses. Charlie Frazier asked us to paint the lighthouse at Harbortown, and we did that. Of course, you had to hang off the side because we didn't have all the fancy equipment to go up there, and it was mostly touch-up area as opposed to painting the whole lighthouse. And so, yeah, we did that. We touched up the lighthouse for Charlie.
Okay.
And
that's been in a few movies. I mean,
yeah, that was fun.
It's often, you know, if it's Hilton Head's involved, usually they bring that lighthouse in.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, that's a copyrighted thing. The colors are copyrighted Sherwin-Williams colors, unless that's changed. As far as I know, they were copyrighted for the lighthouse by Charles, and so yeah, you had to get special colors to do that, and so
you got into the construction, and
it just grew.
Yeah.
And more, and then I ended up staying over here more, and it got to be more and more. I went ahead and got my builder's license, and originally it was Joseph A. Dean Builder, and then I didn't do anything for a while because the economy went bad in 2008, and right about the time 2008-09 is when you started off on your own, didn't you?
Yeah.
Somewhere along in there. Yeah.
09, yeah. I mean, a lot of people actually started businesses in 09.
Oh yeah. Well, coming out of 2008, especially, and
let go.
But I had the opportunity. A friend of mine had the opportunity to go do industrial construction out on the road, and he called me and said, "Hey, got some openings coming up. You know, would you like to come out and do? You know, we'll travel together and do stuff." And so I ended up being a millwright for about 6 years, and I got certified as a millwright and a carpenter and all that because just taking the courses and had to have a certain amount of experience to be certified. And I got those 2 certifications so that I could do either one, but I ended up doing all millwright stuff, precision millwright, which was fun when you're putting something in a position and you have 0.02 of an inch tolerance for where it has to be. Yeah. So you had to be very accurate. They use lasers to set stuff up. You have to do things like aligning a motor to a pump. And there's a shaft that goes through and attaches, and those 2 shafts come together with a flange. And the 2 flanges have to be aligned in such a way that they don't, as they spin, they don't put any stress on the shaft because it'll wear out the bearings in both the motor and the pump. And so you had to be very accurate. 2/10 was really a lot. A lot of times they would like you to have 0 or as close to 0 as you could get, but 2/10 was as maximum allowance for being out of alignment. And but it was kind of cool because he had these big motors and pumps and stuff, and where they sat on a platform with the bolts, bolting them down, and you had to shim under this one like 2/1000ths,
Wow.
1/1000th, 3/1000ths, and then you run your test over again, and then okay, you got to lift this one a little bit, take one out of there, and until you got it all just right. And that was fun. And then got involved in built the Kevlar plant in Moncks Corner, and then we went to Georgia, and I went to Meridian, Mississippi, north of there, worked on a power plant, and then we got the opportunity to go to Charleston, Tennessee to build a chemical plant. The chemical plant made the place was called Bacher Chemicals, and they made the chemicals that are used to coat the solar panels, and theirs was dramatically more efficient than most of what was out there at the time. And that was I don't know, $2.5–3 billion project. And it was kind of interesting being one of 3,000 or 4,000 people on a job site. Yeah, it kind of puts you in perspective.
Wow.
But your part was just as important. And I was fortunate enough to get to know the higher ups, and the project manager would come by. We got to know each other a good bit, and he would come by and just talk to me, hey, what do you think about these guys over here? Because he knew I had a fair amount of experience in different things, and I would tell him the truth. If I thought somebody needed a little bit of guidance, then, but most of the time those guys knew what they were doing, and I enjoyed that. And then I was about to turn 62, and I said, okay, I've had enough. And while I was on the road now, before that, in the year 2001, I was actually supposed to build. I had a connection to build the first in early 2001. I'm supposed to build the first 4-unit townhouse deal down next to the port property in Port Royal, and then 08 hit, and that all went away. But before that, I was doing some stuff on my own, and this guy named Eddie Powell found me, and he had a couple of things that needed some help on, and so I had my guys and I went and helped, and we built the arches in front of what is today the Beaufort golf cart over there on Ladies Island.
Okay.
That building has arches. It didn't used to have arches, but the owner wanted to build arches on there and dress it up. And so Eddie asked us to help with that, and we did that. And then when we were done with that, Eddie said, I've got a house out at Dawtaw that wants some additions and remodeling stuff. How would you like to go out there and do that as superintendent? And I said, yeah, okay, that sounds good. So I did that, and I was out there actually working on that project, and I came into town to pick up something from Graco, and listening to John Boy and Billy. Yeah, remember John Boy and Billy?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and
the big show.
Yeah, and they were actually talking about Russell Kelly, who was a friend of mine, who used to go on the motorcycle ride with Kyle Petty. And they, John Boy and Billy and Rayford used to do the motorcycle ride and they were talking about Russell, and I was listening because I knew Russell, and his son was Milton Kelly and Harvey Kelly, and Diane, the sister, and but about that time, John Boy and Billy said, "Oh, some idiot just ran into the building in New York." They didn't really know what was going on, and then like 2 or 3 minutes later, they said, "Oh my God, no! It was a jet." And I called Eddie, or he called me. I can't remember which one, But he said, "Man, you hear about all this?" So I went to Eddie's, and we watched that at his house while all that stuff was going on. But then for the next 4 years or so, I worked for Eddie, and then I went on my own again. We had a little break there, and I said, somebody approached me about building a house, and so I did that, and I did that for a while, and all the way through up until 2009, and went off doing stuff. And while I was gone, every so often, Eddie would call me, and he said, "Was that your truck I just saw go by?" I go, "No, Eddie, I'm in Mississippi," or he said, "Oh, okay." We just keep in touch, and then when I finally decided to come back, he said, "Oh, great, come on back."
Yeah.
And so I had started my Hannah Construction. I named it Hannah Construction in 2005, and so I still had that kind of sitting on a shelf, and so I started that back up and did some stuff with Eddie. I did, and then I did for a couple of years, and then went back on my own again a little bit, and basically ended up doing with Eddie project management and so forth for the last bunch of years.
Yeah.
And the thing about it is, one of the things that it was very California to do personality reviews and studies of yourself and everything. And so I got involved in one of those little organizations that did that. And actually it taught me something that I probably already knew but didn't make the connection. But because I never lasted very long in a job pretty much all my life, because I would get bored with it. At some point, okay, I know how to do this, I've done this all, and time to move on to something else. But what that taught me, and it brought to light out there when I was going through one of those programs, was that I was project oriented. And it works perfect for what we do, because every project is different. It's still construction, but you get to do a project, and each one is unique. You get to meet different people, and you get to look back at it when it's over and go, "That's pretty cool, I did that,"
Yeah.
And that's Eddie and I every now and then. I don't want to speak for Eddie, but every now and then we do say, we're maybe, another year or so, we'll kind of drop back to maybe only 1 or 2 projects a year, because I'll be 73 in a couple of weeks, and I'm the oldest of the crowd in our group. I'm older than Eddie, but yeah, and each time that we refresh that idea, the phone starts ringing again. We end up doing more stuff, which is great, and I do enjoy what I do, and I can do it literally forever. I know so many people in this industry, in construction, that have been doing it for, 50, 60 years or more. And generations, that's one of the reasons that I named my company Hannah Construction, because that's my daughter's first name is Hannah. And speaking of bananas, about third grade, she got tired of listening to Hannah Banana and Hannah Montana. And so she decided that she would be Chloe, which is her middle name. So she's Chloe now.
Okay.
But yeah, I named the company Hannah Construction just because I figured she's going to get it all anyway. Might as well put her name on it now.
Right.
Yep.
That's a legacy you're leaving.
Yeah.
Your family.
And my property up in Varnville, like 42 acres, and she'll get that. She's already got plans for it. She wants to, in the event that she ends up back there with her soon-to-be husband, she wants to do it as an animal rescue thing, which that'd be great, be right up her alley. She loves animals. Got 2 golden retrievers, and always has loved animals. And she's a Carolina grad, just like me. And so, yeah, we did that. And so Eddie do that.
Nobody's perfect.
That's what we do, and we landed there. And
yeah. No, I like what you said about project oriented, because I can definitely resonate with that. I mean, and also thinking back to your career, I mean, taking on fire marshal at 22 years old, and that's somebody who is wanting a challenge, and these projects give you that challenge.
They do. Each one,
the small ones, and the big ones, and then the people. What are some of the biggest challenges you've encountered has it been the people, the project, or what?
Actually, it's a combination of people with projects. There's many types. Everybody's unique. Everybody's different, and there's the projects that somebody says, I want to add a 10 by 10 onto my kitchen, and then they walk away and you go and add it, and they're fine with that. And then there's people that you get big sets of plans, and they do the same thing. They hand you the plans, hey, build this, and they'll be interacting a little bit. And then there's people that want the liberty of making decisions about things as they build, which slows the process down a little bit, complicates it a little bit, but at the same time, the objective is to give the client what they want. And so that's what I stay focused on is, and if somebody says, hey, can we change this? My response is always the same. It's yours. Now's the time, while we're in the construction phase, to modify something that you want. I don't want you sitting out in the front yard 2 years from now going, oh, geez, I wish we'd have done so-and-so, And so, yeah, I do like to focus on having satisfied clients. And because we tend to try to have long-term friendships with the people that we do things for, and we have a lot of those. And I've done a lot of different things, and I've enjoyed all of them. Everything has been unique, and but yeah, one of the challenges, and this will step a little bit off of the construction thing, but one of the challenges that my father gave me, had a friend that was a volunteer on the fire department in Port Royal. He was a Marine, and they got assigned to a different place, and he had this, I think it was 68 or 65 Oldsmobile. Anyway, he said, there's something wrong with it. I can't figure out what it is, but, take it. If you can fix it, you can have it. And so we had it at our house in Port Royal. And my father was one of those people that if you just tried to turn the ignition over, he would say, okay, this is what's wrong with it. I mean, he was that good. But he said, when I did that, he said, okay, it's got a blown head gasket. So
wow.
I never worked on cars, okay, but he said, okay, lift the hood. And he said, see all that stuff?
Blown head gasket.
Take all that stuff off, lay everything on the bench, keep it in order, make sure the tools are clean and back where you got them from every day, and let me know if you have any questions or problems. And he didn't come out there and say, you okay? It had to be if I got to a point where I needed the help. But I took up the challenge and didn't ask for help. I got down to that point, and as I took things apart, I just had the picture. It was almost like a movie in my head of taking the stuff apart, where it went and all that kind of stuff, and took the heads off. And he said, okay, now take them up there to Beaufort Muffler and give them to Uncle Richie and have them plane the heads, do the valve job, get new head gaskets, and come back and put them on. And my Uncle Richie, Richard Gray, had Beaufort Muffler and had the shop in the back and all. And so that's what I did. Took them up there and they did that, and I took it all back, put it all back together, got it all ready, and I said, okay, I think it's ready. And he said, okay, crank it up. And I cranked it up, and it cranked. And it had a little shake or a little to it, just a little bit. So something's not right. And of course, my father recognized exactly what it was right off the bat. And he stood back and he said, look it over, see if you see anything you did wrong. And they stood there for about, I don't know, half hour, 45 minutes waiting on me to find it. And he finally said, well, you think anything's connected wrong or anything?
Yeah.
Started looking at the distributor cap and chasing the wires down, and I had a plug wire on the wrong cylinder. Turned it off, switched those, ran like a charm.
Yeah.
But that was challenge. Now, when I was little and we had the farm, the challenge was you stand in the back of the corn crib and your sister will drive the tractor down through the cornfield, and you pull the corn off and throw it in the front of the wagon. And then when you get down to the other end, turn around and then you drive the tractor and your sister can get in the corn crib and pull the corn. And so we worked the farm as little guys. Yeah, I was 7, 8, 9 years old or so, and my sister was 5.5 years older than me. And so, yeah, I was driving a tractor at 5, 6 years old, but that was the challenge, he didn't,
It sounds like your dad was a really interesting man, an amazing man, really.
He was, and I think about him all the time. He died in 84 from a cerebral hemorrhage in the middle of the night, and I didn't think about it for a couple of years, but it dawned on me one evening just thinking about it that it could have been, rather than just by chance, a cerebral hemorrhage. He was on a battleship for 5 years, USS New Mexico. Started out, he joined in 1940. He was on that ship doing escort duty back and forth to England, North Atlantic. And when the Pearl Harbor happened, They went in, got some upfits to the ship, went through the Panama Canal, headed towards Pearl Harbor. But yeah, he was basically machinist mate, running the engines and the motors and everything down in there. And they had torpedoes and kamikazes and all these different explosions. They lost 100 and something guys one time, and 40 something another time, and lost the captain, almost everybody on a bridge one time with a kamikaze. And those explosions, you back in the day, you wouldn't think about the microscopic pieces of metal that could be all in your body. My father could scratch every now and then, and he would get to a point, and then he would pick up a magnet and put it on his wrist or his leg or something and pull out a little piece of metal that came from that shrapnel. And so it has puzzled me since the late 80s as to whether or not that could have been a possibility, that there was shrapnel in his head and that just finally worked a hole in there. I mean, I don't know, but it was just something that dawned on me. It could have been a possibility. But yeah, he was a millwright before I ever heard of the word millwright, because that was part of his job, was to keep those shafts aligned properly from the motor, because it's an electric motor, but big diesel engines that turned the electric motor to create the electricity that ran the ship. Mm-hmm. And I didn't even know that until years later, a lot after that. But I found some of his tools when I was a teenager that were like micrometer and stuff, and it's like I didn't have the slightest idea what that was. But that's something when you're measuring, micro portions of inches, and he would mount those on a shaft and watch the needle do this until you got it to the point where it stopped doing this, and that meant that the shaft was aligned. And so being a millwright and thinking back on that, aligning those engines and motors that he was doing, and you're talking, he was born in 21, so in 1940 when he joined the Navy, he was 19 years old, and went through almost 6 years on that battleship. And I have a book that he wrote, and tells the story of each one of the campaigns. And their final thing was escorting, part of the escort of the Missouri for the surrender in Tokyo Harbor. Wow. And and then when he came home, he got a job, worked wherever he could work, and bought a house on Oaklawn Street off of North Street. Mm-hmm. And that's where they were living when I was born, at Beaufort Memorial, when it was a little brick building. Not too much bigger than this room. It was small back then. But yeah, I learned so much from him, and nothing intimidated him. I mean, he took on whatever came. And when we lived on the farm, it wasn't enough of a farm to make a living off of, and so he and Mom always worked. But he got a job at the post office, and you had to be there on time. And at the time, the old wooden bridge was not all that dependable, and so we moved in over to this side of the water, and he was working the post office for quite a while, and I was 10 years old, and he came home one day and said, "I got something for you. This is going to be your 4-H project for this year."
Okay.
Well, there at the post office, somebody had ordered 250 chicks. and didn't come and claim them.
Okay.
So they did a little raffle, and Daddy won the raffle and brought home 250 chicks. And in a matter of an hour, we had to build something out in the backyard to put them all in, a light out there for heat,
yeah,
and all. And then later we built an actual chicken coop and everything in the backyard. That was back when we lived on Palmetto Drive, which is behind where Chick-fil-A is out there on 21 now. Chick-fil-A was Mr. Bauer's hog farm back in that time.
From hogs to chicken.
I used to help Mr. Bowers with his hogs,
yeah,
and all. And but yeah, we raised chickens again. Well, we had done that on the farm, so it wasn't anything new to raise chickens. But another challenge, there it was. Here's 250 chicks. They're yours.
Yeah.
So
those challenges, your dad just gave you these challenges on the farm with the chickens, different things, and it sounds like that's helped you in your career and your life, really, to learn how to grow, how to deal with things.
It does, and one of the things that I guess I was about, growing up on the farm, we got up and worked the field and, did stuff, went to school and then came home and went back out in the field and all. And one morning I forgot to close the gate after feeding the hogs before we went and got on. My sister and I went and got on the school bus, and I forgot about that. When I got home, the hogs were out in the watermelon patch, and we butchered hogs that weekend. Mm-hmm. Daddy was upset.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, those kind of challenges were fun, and like I say, he knew how to do anything. He retired as the master scheduler at the air station, and because going to work for the post office got him into the civil service stuff. And so when he got an opening out there, he went out there and had long number of years out there working at the air station. But yeah, he was good at teaching me how to get out of the bed and go to work. And I think I was about 13 or so when we had moved to Port Royal, and when I was younger, they would take me to Marita Avenue, which is where my grandmother lived, and with a lawnmower and a can of gasoline and a jug of sweet tea, and for $2 a yard, I cut 3 or 4 yards for the people on Marita Avenue. That was my weekend. But later on, when I was about 13 or so, one day I asked him for some money, and he said, "You want some money? Go get a job, boy." So I walked up what is today Paris Avenue. It was 10th Avenue back then, Port Royal, up to the Esso station. It was the Esso then, and got a job at Vernon Smith's Esso station, pumping gas and checking the air in the tires, checking the oil and all that sort of stuff. And then they built a new Exxon station behind the Esso station, and then bulldozed the Esso station, and I went to work at the Exxon station a couple of years later. And now there's a Parker's there.
Right.
And so, yeah, and actually Vernon's brother, George, had a Texaco station on Boundary Street. And I think I was about 17. And Vernon said, "Hey, go talk to George. He needs somebody to run the station." And so I went up and talked to George, and he said, "Oh, great. Okay, you're in charge." He went to lunch. Left me with the station.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, that you're right. I mean, that's some of the things that my father taught me was, just go, do it.
Yeah.
You know, and if you want to, and I tell young people that ever have a question or anything, that if it feels like they need a pointer or two, I tell them, if you want to make it in life, I don't care what it is you want to do, you will work into something, but start out by getting your butt out of bed, go get a job. I don't care if it's sweeping a floor, emptying trash, picking up trash in the yard, or cutting grass, or whatever it is. Get a job, learn, make yourself more valuable by learning more, to do more things and to do them better. And somebody will notice that, whether it's the person that you're working for at the time or somebody else, and they will invite you to come to work for them, or you will get promoted. And if you stay on that path, even if you change career fields, if you stay on that path by taking things on and learning and making yourself more valuable, you will never have a problem getting a job. And if you get to a point where the economy doesn't necessarily have a job for you, do what I did when I left the fire department. The first thing I did was I went to what was True Value at the time. Richard Gray owned the Hilton Head Auto Parts and a True Value hardware store, and I went down and got a vacuum cleaner and some cleaning supplies and started cleaning offices, and that turned into cleaning offices, cleaning churches, doing turnarounds in rental condos. I had both movie theaters for a while, the Pelican Pictures and Coligny Plaza Theater, and I was working till 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning doing that, and coming over here to go to school at USCB at the same time. And that's how that business got built up so big that I was making 2 or 3 times what I was making in the fire department. And it just came. And, you know, I was never be afraid to do something. Nothing is beneath you. When I got the opportunity, for example, to go on the road doing industrial construction, my friend said, hey, they don't have a position for you in a craft or anything, but if you want, you know, you can come out and start on the labor crew, and you know, and that way you'll be here, you'll be working, and as soon as something comes open, you can move into it. And I said, fine with me. And so for about the first 3 months at the Kevlar plant that we were building, I squeegeed water off the concrete floors because it didn't have a roof on the building or anything yet. So when it rained, you get water all over all the concrete floors, squeegee those off, sweep down, pick up trash, whatever I needed to be doing for the first 2 or 3 months. And then the supervisor of the iron crew, who was, you know, building the steel structure for the building, said, hey, I got an opening. You want to work the iron crew? I said, sure, why not? You know, it was like $4 more an hour to go do that. And I did, took care of all the tools, kept track of everything, helped carry welding stuff up through the buildings and all that kind of stuff. You know, I wasn't a welder. I wasn't a steel guy or anything like that. I just was a part of that thing. And then I did that until they got to the point where the steel crew was finished. And the guy said to everybody in the group, hey, today's the last day. Our steel work's done. So, you know, we'll call you if we get another project lined up. And he said, Joe, hang loose. And so everybody else left, and I walked over. I said, yeah, what can I do? He said, millwright guys already asked for you. I told them that we were closing down and you were ready to take on anything. And so that's what I did. I switched to millwright, and that's what I did for the next 6 years or so.
Yeah.
But
if you excel, you're going to get good opportunities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you do the same thing. You have done the same thing.
I try to. Yeah.
Yeah, you have, and I have watched you do it.
Well, thank you.
You know, and you have a beautiful big family. Talk about a challenge.
Oh yeah. Sure.
You know that compared to running a business.
Yeah. I don't know which one's the bigger one.
Yeah, I know what you mean. You know,
So,
I got one daughter. And, yeah. So yeah, I mean, and one of the things that I really and truly enjoy in just life in general is watching people do that. What you have done. Started out and build something, and the reason that Eddie and I call you is because we know you're who we want to be doing our stuff, and it's that construction used to be go get some materials and build something. Today it's architects, engineers, electricians, building officials, all the process you got to go through just to get the permit to start building, and so as a builder, I've had to learn to be okay with having people tell me the way that the book says this is how you got to do it, and you and the folks that you have worked with over the years have been great for us, and one of the things that I find that's good with some engineers, and some of them not so much, but is the willingness on the part of the engineer, just like the willingness on the part of the builder, to have an open mind at looking at ways to do things, because sometimes you got a budget to deal with, and so the brightest and best way to do something might also be the most expensive.
Mm-hmm.
So having somebody that can work you through that stuff and help you get it done.
It's great. I mean, I really enjoy talking with you and learning from you. That's why I wanted to bring you on. I think you have a wealth of knowledge of construction and some aspects I haven't considered or haven't really spent as much time in with the fire. But definitely a lot of really valuable lessons, especially just listening to you talk about your dad. It's inspiring to me as a dad, but also, I mean, like, for example, the leadership qualities. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's being a leader. He's sitting there letting you work on the car. And, I mean, some people might say, well, that's, sink or swim method, right? But he was watching you. He was watching you out the window, and he was, I'm speculating, but and he was there when you needed him, and if you needed him, he would have been there. But I think there's some leadership quality there, because now we want to spoon feed people, right?
Yeah.
And say this is exactly how you do it, and then you don't have that challenge, right? So it's a real lesson for me. Thanks, Joe.
Well, thank you.
Appreciate you being on. Looking forward to continue working with you as well. And
absolutely.
So, Joe, do you ever have anywhere you want people to find you, Facebook or LinkedIn or?
Actually, I don't. I am on Facebook, just Joe Dean, and I have a LinkedIn thing, but I haven't used it in years, because I get job offers sent all the time, because I'm still on there, and I even try to post on there, no, I'm not looking for, they go, you're still looking for, no, I don't, I got a job, I don't want it, I'm doing exactly what I want to do now, and
fair enough. Well, if you want to catch up with Joe, you can. Thanks again for coming on the podcast.
Absolutely.
Today.
Thank you.
It was a lot of fun learning from you.
Hey everybody, thanks for listening to today's episode of Enhance. And please leave a like, a subscribe, or a follow, and we'll see you next time.